in Los Angeles, and I love Sacramento. I've been there many times. I've been to I can never get it right, Fairy Tale Town. Yes. And I've been to the library, a big and beautiful library. So it's really nice to be here with you. And thank you for doing this on a beautiful Saturday when you could be outside. I'll try to make it very entertaining. So this book did not sell 11 million copies. This is the whole series total. And I don't get $1 per book. So I am not living in a big mansion. But there are 9 if books. So the other books, I'm not very good at math. I cannot subtract 9 from 47, 36, right? So there are 36 books that don't begin with the word if. And I'm going to tell you about all my books. I'm going to read you my latest book called Raising a Hero, about service dogs. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about this series. So it's what mommies do best, what daddies do best. So it's 2 books in one. So I want you to see how it looks in real life. You go in one direction, and then you turn it over and you have another book. So that's how it goes. So I'm gonna make sure I can share the screen and get my show on the road. There we go. So I'm gonna read If You Give a Mouse a Cookie to You. I'm sure some of you have read it. Maybe you've read it twice. Maybe you've heard other people. I think it's interesting to hear the author read their own book. And I think it would be funny, what if I started reading If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? Okay, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie by me, Laura Numeroff. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. Uh-oh. How embarrassing. Okay, well, I'll read it in person. If you give a mouse a cookie. All right. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. When you give him the milk, he'll probably ask you for a straw. When he's finished, he'll ask for a napkin. Then he'll want to look in a mirror to make sure he doesn't have a milk mustache. When he looks into the mirror, he might notice his hair needs a trim, so he'll probably ask for a pair of nail scissors. When he's finished giving himself a trim, he'll want a broom to sweep up. He'll start sweeping. He might get carried away and sweep every room in the house. Trying to get him to come to my house. He may even end up washing the floors as well. When he's done, he'll probably want to take a nap. You'll have to fix up a little box for him with a blanket and a pillow. He'll crawl in, make himself comfortable, and fluff the pillow a few times. He'll probably ask you to read him a story. So you'll read to him from one of your books and he'll ask to see the pictures. When he looks at the pictures, he'll get so excited, he'll want to draw one of his own. He'll ask for paper and crayons. He'll draw a picture. When the picture is finished, he'll want to sign his name with a pen. Then he'll want to hang his picture on your refrigerator, which means he'll need Scotch tape. He'll hang up his drawing and stand back to look at it. Looking at the refrigerator will remind him that he's thirsty. So he'll ask for a glass of milk. And chances are, if he asks for a glass of milk, what's he gonna wanna go with it? A donut, a cupcake, a muffin? He's gonna want a cookie to go with it. Most often I'm asked where I get my ideas. If You Give a Mouse a Cookie came to me on a long, boring car trip. How many of you have been on long, boring car trips? Except I was 27. And I used to live in San Francisco, and we used to drive to Oregon all the time. And I got so bored that I just started thinking of things to make myself laugh. And I pictured a big, beautiful black and white zebra eating Cheetos. And you can't pretend you didn't have Cheetos because there's always orange on your fingers and on your mouth. So I pictured the big, beautiful black and white zebra with orange around his mouth. And then I started thinking about an orangutan, and they have really long arms. And I love pizza, but when you take a slice of pizza, you start to pull it up, the cheese gets all stringy. So I pictured an orangutan getting tangled in string cheese. And that summer, Mrs. Fields was very, very popular. So it was a big chocolate chip cookie. And I pictured a little mouse nibbling on this big cookie. But I didn't stop and try to think of a different animal. I just thought, oh, he'd probably want milk. And I pictured the little mouse with crumbs in his whiskers and then milk mustache. And I kept going and going. And by the time we got to Oregon, I had the whole idea in my head, beginning, middle, and an end. When we came back to San Francisco, I sat down on my $50 typewriter with no W and wrote out If You Mouse a Cookie. And I tried to sell it. And 9 publishers rejected it. So I sent it out again and I got a phone call. We want to publish your book. So my motto is never give up. And now I'm going to share my presentation with you. The one that didn't have all the pictures. So this is my birth announcement. My dad was an artist and he drew this. Another pair has been added. Alice and Emily announced the arrival of their sister, Laura Sue Numeroff, July 14th, 1953. And that's my dad. And this was in Brooklyn, New York. And those are my sisters. That's Alice and Emily. My dad used to like to pose us and take photographs. He was a really good photographer. And I don't know why I'm crying, but you can see I have very, very red hair. And maybe I wanted to wear a different dress or pants, I don't know. And this was me at Halloween. I love animals, but I didn't have my own pets for quite some time. So I love to pet any dog or cat or animal that I could. And you can see that I'm looking to see if he has any teeth. And that wasn't my dog, but I'm sure I asked if I could keep him. And that wasn't my kitten, but I'm sure I asked if I could take him home. And we would drive up to the country, so I got to pet farm animals. And this was at a petting zoo in Coney Island, and I know I asked if I could take him home because I loved holding the raccoon. They're one of my favorite animals. And my favorite stuffed animal, it was this little stiff kitten that I still have. And I would go pony riding. And then when I got a little bit older, I took lessons. And then finally I got to have my own horses. This one is Otis. And that wasn't my dog, but there are always dogs around the barn where I used to ride. And that's Oliver. And some of these names you'll hear later, like you will definitely hear me talk about the name Otis and Oliver. And my sister Emily lives in Princeton, New Jersey, and every time I visit her, the first thing I do is put down my luggage and we go to the farm where you can feed the animals. And I don't think I asked to take this one home, but it was very exciting and I was also scared. I also love to travel, and this is in England. Rest in peace, Prince Philip. And this is in France. And I'm wondering if a mouse would clean this house. I've been all over the United States. I lived in New York. I grew up in New York, and I've lived half my life in California. And the only states I haven't been to are Montana, Idaho, Alaska, and Hawaii. One of my favorite cities is New Orleans. And this is at Niagara Falls. This is in Baltimore. I also love to draw. So sometimes I'll just do a drawing for fun. Some drawings I've done have inspired me to write a book. And I did illustrate my first 9 books. I like to draw bears and cats and rabbits. And even when I draw people, I like to put animals in them. I love drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. And these are little characters that are on my website. And I put glasses on a lot of my characters because I started wearing them in kindergarten. And I just did this for fun. And I've been trying to come up with an idea about this little bunny who apparently likes to draw. And this is on my, I would love to have a t-shirt like. And I do these doodles that are auctioned off to raise money for food for the homeless in New York. So you just have to do something that they call them doodles, but I like to put the word doodle in the illustration. So I wasn't able to make a living as a writer for quite some time. And in the meantime, I had a lot of part-time jobs. I've been a waitress and a secretary and a receptionist, and I've been fired from a lot of those jobs. But a couple of things I was able to do to make some extra money was design greeting cards. I also got to design fabric for kids' clothing. So I had to do a pattern like this that repeats. I've never seen anybody wearing anything with this fabric, but it was fun. And I also designed plates for kids, you know, the kind that have little different sections for the food. And I love to read. So animals, books, travel, and reading are my favorite things. And when I first got my library card, you could only take out 6 books at a time. So I would take 6 books out and bring them home and read them and then go back and take another 6. And I was always reading. My parents read to me every night. There were tons of books in the house. And when I read Eloise, which is about a little girl who lives in a hotel in New York City, and Stuart Little about a mouse in New York City, that's what inspired, these books inspired me to become an author. And I always knew I wanted to be a writer of children's books. And my first book, I went to college, Pratt Institute, and I actually took a class in writing and illustrating books for children. In 1975, I sold Amy for short before I graduated. So I graduated college with a degree and a contract for my first book. It's about the tallest girl in the 3rd grade. She's so tall, she goes as a tree for Halloween. And that's Amy. And her best friend, Mark, is the tallest boy in the 3rd grade. And on Halloween, he goes as the Empire State Building. And they're just best friends. But for summer, she goes to camp, he goes to his grandmother's, and when they come back in fourth grade, he's taller than she is, and he's not very happy. I wrote and illustrated Digger. Most books are about kids who want pets, but the parents don't allow them. I wrote one about the father who wants a dog, but the landlord doesn't allow pets. And I did it all in black with pencil and pen. And then one day I was with my friend and we saw a Dalmatian. And I said, wouldn't he look cute in red sneakers? And my friend said, dogs don't wear sneakers. And I just started rhyming in my head, dogs don't wear sneakers, and pigs don't wear hats, and dresses look silly on Siamese cats. Sheep don't take showers, and goats never shave, and you won't find a bathtub inside a bear's cave. I had so much fun writing these verses that I actually had enough to make 2 books. So the second one is called Chimps Don't Wear Glasses. I pictured old grandpa chimps wearing reading glasses, looking at the newspaper, but Joe, the illustrator, did a rock band of chimps wearing sunglasses. And I think he had a good time illustrating this book. I love to write poetry, so I finally got to do my own book of poems called Sometimes I Wonder If Poodles Like Noodles. And the artist told me that's his daughter. And the poodle is jumping rope with a piece of spaghetti. Spots. My Dalmatian's name is Sydney. He's got a million spots. I think it would be fun to try connecting all his dots. And that's Sydney. That's the dog I had when I was writing the poem, so I used his name. And I love science. My favorite subject in school was science. And I love going to museums, all kinds of museums, but especially science museums. So I wrote Dinosaur Bones. I like to go to the science museum and see the dinosaur's bones. He looks like he could have eaten a million ice cream cones. I stand below and look straight up. He's at least 8 stories tall. I have all of my toes and my fingers crossed that nothing will make him fall. And I love that the dinosaur is holding some ice cream cones. And I used to go ice skating with my friend Kathy. That's me on the left. So I wrote Learning to Ice Skate. I'm learning how to ice skate, but I'm always falling down. I guess it's lucky that I'm short, so I'm closer to the ground. I'd like to spin around and round and do a figure 8, but I'll have to start with staying up. Figure 8s can wait. And my favorite one is my new pajamas. These days, I wear PJs that I think are rather neat. They're new and blue with polka dots and come complete with feet. And this book is very special because you can see the Cat in the Hat on the upper right-hand corner, and that's because his publisher published my book, and it's a counting book. One giant monster wears a dress, eats the couch, and makes a mess. 2 happy monsters clean the room. When they're done, they eat the broom. 3 yellow monsters at my door come inside and eat the floor. 20 hungry monsters with nothing left to chew. Better close this book up tight before they chew on you. And I had so much fun writing about monsters that I wrote this book. I got the idea because, you know, when you're in the pet store, you see all these books about how to take care of your new dog or how to take care of your new kitty. And I thought, oh, what if you get a monster? I don't see any books on how to take care of them. So I wrote my own called Laura Numeroff's 10-Step Guide to Living with Your Monster. And step number 7 is training your monster. Teach your monster to sit. Say sit. This may take some time. And the monster's name is Bob. So I got the idea for this book because I have two sisters, and this is called The Chicken Sisters. There's Violet, Poppy, and Babs, and they live together. Violet on the left loves to bake, but she doesn't see very well, so the oven's always on the wrong setting and she burns everything. Poppy in the middle loves to knit, but she has bad taste and she uses scratchy wool. And Babs loves to sing, but she sings off key. But the sisters don't mind eating burnt cookies or wearing ugly sweaters or listening to Babs singing. And a wolf comes to town to eat everybody. And it turns out that the cookies and the knitting and the singing actually scare the wolf away to go back home and live with his mother in New Jersey. So this is the series called What Mommies Do Best. So mommies can watch the sunset with you. And then you turn it over to the daddy side. Daddies can watch the sunset with you. So mommies and daddies do the same thing, but they do them differently. And the series includes what aunts do best, what uncles do best. And this is one of my favorites because I love otters. What grandmas do best, what grandpas do best, what sisters do best, what brothers do best. And then there was going to be puppies and kittens, but they only did one side. So it's what puppies do best. And I love the puppies and the dogs in this book. And speaking of dogs and travel, I got this when I was in London. The policemen wear an outfit like this, and they're called bobbies. And it inspired me to write a book called Sherman Crunchley about this policeman who really isn't a very good policeman. He can't say no. And if he breaks, he'll just bring in donuts and hope everybody eat the donuts and stop fighting. Sherman would much rather be making hats, and I love Sherman's hats. But his father is retiring and as chief of police, and he's going to make Sherman the new chief of police. Sherman doesn't know how to tell him no. He orders a tape on how to say no, but it turns out it's saying no in different languages. And then at the retirement party for his father, Sherman has made hats for the guests. And they spell out, I don't want to be chief. And Sherman's mother faints. And Sherman's father said, Sherman, what's going on? And Sherman's afraid to say anything, but he said, well, I don't want to be chief of police. I want to make hats. And his father says, Sherman, why didn't you tell me? I don't want to retire. I didn't know how to tell you. And so Sherman ends up having his own store and making his hats. And the dog, the black and white dog, is this dog that I showed you, Sydney. So the artist took that picture and drew Sydney. And the dog is asking Sherman, do you think this is too fancy for me? And Sherman says, no. And the other dog says, do you mind if I just browse? And Sherman says, no. And the last dog says, do you ever miss police work? And Sherman says, no. And these bears gave me the idea for this book, Otis and Sydney, and the best birthday ever. So remember, Otis was my horse and Sydney was my dog. It's about these two little bears who become best friends. And one year, Otis gives Sydney a surprise party, but he puts the wrong date on the invitation and nobody shows up. And so they end up sharing the cake and doing all the fun things they had planned, and he has the best birthday ever. And somebody made this cake for me at the book signing. And I wrote about a little dog named Beatrice who doesn't like books. She hates to read and she doesn't want to go to the library. Can you imagine? But in the end, she doesn't want to leave the library. And somebody sent me this picture of a little girl reading Beatrice to a cat, at the ASPCA in Maryland. And I bet the cat is thinking, why are you reading a book about dogs to me? Don't you have any books about cats? And my best friend, when I was growing up, lived right across the street, and her parents always had potato chips and candy and cupcakes and soda. And we didn't have fun junk food. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I should trade my parents and then I'll get to eat all that junk food. But then I thought of all the great things my parents do. So it gave me the idea for this book. Would I trade my parents? And I had a cat named Cooper. And so I started rhyming in my head. I was picturing a little kangaroo. And I thought, Cooper climbed out of his warm mama's pouch, took out a book and sat on the couch. And I was going to write a book about the mom reading to Cooper so he could go to sleep, but I ended up writing lullabies. And so Cooper asks his mom to sing lullabies because he can't sleep. And in the end, she asks her little son Cooper to sing her a lullaby. And guess who falls asleep first? So when I was riding at a horse show, I heard someone say, my horse lost her shoe. And I immediately thought of Cinderella. So I wrote Ponyella, but with a white pony. And one night I couldn't sleep. And I remember people say, count sheep. But then I thought, but what if the sheep are sleeping? And that gave me the idea for when sheep sleep. And these are just some characters I created. And actually, they kind of ended up becoming these 4 girls. So the jelly beans are 4 friends. They call themselves the jelly beans because just like jelly beans are different flavors, but go great together, the girls are different. So the initial of their first spell out Bean. There's Bitsy, Emily, Anna, and Nicole, and they call themselves the Jelly Beans. In the Jelly Beans and the Big Art Adventure, Bitsy loved to paint. In the Jelly Beans and the Big Dance, Emily loved to dance, and I used my sister's name, Emily. The Jelly Beans and the Big Book Bonanza is about Anna, who loved to read, and this one is my favorite. And the Jelly Beans and the Big Camp Kickoff is about Nicole, who loved to play soccer. And I had to do research because I don't play soccer. So I'm going to show you my favorite illustrations in the If series. So if you give a mouse a cookie, this is my favorite illustration because I used to love to draw with crayons, and my favorite gift was a box of crayons with a pencil sharpener in the back. If you give a moose a muffin is my favorite one in the series. I love Moose because he's so big, but he gets scared easily and he's dropping things. And I love this one because he's so big and he's sewing on a tiny little button. And I love blueberry muffins. If you give a pig a pancake, I always wanted a tree house. And even though we had trees and a tree grows in Brooklyn, we didn't have big ones. So I couldn't have a tree house. So I put it in the book. Christmas is my favorite holiday. I decorate the house. I actually listen to Christmas carols all year round. And this one is my favorite illustration because I love the peppermint candy canes on his boxer shorts. And I have a feeling he's probably doesn't sing very well. I wrote, if you take a mouse to school, because I loved going to school. This is my favorite illustration because on the left, the second girl in back of the little boy, where you see mouse peeking out, is me. The artist took this picture of me making muffins, maybe for a moose, and put me in the illustration. If you give a pig a party, even though I refuse to go on roller coasters, this is my favorite illustration. And I love red velvet cupcakes. And I actually do have a cat that looks like that, but it's not mine. And in this one, I like his bathing suit. If you give a dog a donut, I like the laundry going all over the place. And then I wrote, if you give a mouse a brownie, because brownies are my favorite dessert. And anytime I went on a book signing, they either had, when a cat, they had cupcakes, when then they had donuts. And I thought, well, I like brownies. So I wrote, if you give a mouse a brownie, and this is cute. It reminds me of Singing in the Rain. My books have been published in different languages. This is German, and I do not know how to read it, but I can kind of tell mouse and house. You can see that. This is French, not from France, but from Canada. And I do read and speak French. And it says, cerise tu veux un biscuit? But it doesn't say if you give a mouse a cookie. I don't know why. I think I need to write to Canada. This is Chinese. I don't read Chinese, but maybe it says if you give a mouse a fortune cookie. This is Spanish. Spanish is the only language that is available to buy in the United States. And this is Hungarian, and that's Chinese. No, it's Korean, I'm sorry. And this is Italian. So topo is mouse in Italian. And I used to have a little mouse called Topo Gigio, which was a character on a TV show for all you people who know what I'm talking about, Ed Sullivan. So don't order topo pasta. And this is from Brazil. And this is Japanese. And speaking of Japan, this was a bus in Tokyo. Somebody sent me this photograph and told that it's advertising for their bookstore chain. So we drove by with ads for Barnes and Noble. And I think if I was in Tokyo and the bus drove past me, I would probably faint. There are board books. There's Happy Valentine's Day Mouse. It's Pumpkin Day Mouse. Happy Birthday Mouse. Happy Easter Mouse, and my favorite Merry Christmas Mouse. And I think there's also Time for School Mouse. And there's a show on Amazon called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And I named the little boy Oliver. Remember, I had a horse named Oliver, so I named the boy Oliver. And it's a great little show. I love working on it. And we were actually nominated for 2 Emmys, but we didn't win, but that's okay. And I love how they drew clothes on the characters. And everything Pig has is pink. She even drives a little pink scooter. And I love Moose in his helmet. And these are what they do first, like a sketch. And I get to see them on my computer. There's a Valentine's special if you give a mouse a Valentine's cookie. And if you give a mouse a pumpkin, and there's Pig on the right on her little scooter. And then the Christmas, which is of course my favorite, if you give a mouse a Christmas cookie. And these are the backgrounds. The paintings are so beautiful. And of course I love it because it's so Christmassy. And they do such a beautiful job. And that's the mouse costume. That was the first time I met him. That was a long time ago. And there's a pig costume. The pig came out same time the movie Babe came out, and every time somebody saw it, they would call her Babe, and I was like, no, that's my pig. And I was in Laredo, Texas for a book festival. Mouse was there and Pete the cat, and Pig and Mouse were there together. And it was only the second time I'd been with both of them. And this family dressed up as my books for Halloween. I think they're so cute. And this was at a museum in Cleveland, Ohio, and they made the mouse out of cans. I don't think I could do that. And sometimes I'm walking past a store and there's a poster in it that I had no idea was going to be there. So that's always a fun surprise. And this was a fundraiser I did. I love the little mouse marshmallow things they did. This was at a signing for If You Give a Cat a Cupcake, and they made those cookies and these cupcakes, and it was for a bookstore in Lexington, Kentucky. And you can see the yellow banner. And the publisher made these cute little chef hats and gave them out to everybody. And I just thought that was so cute. And there's a mouse doll. And some people read it. This is Michelle Obama and her two daughters who read If You Give a Mouse a Cookie at an Easter egg roll. And because of COVID, the South, they didn't have Mardi Gras parade, so people decorated their houses. And I sent the family a copy of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. They were in Mobile, Alabama, and they ended up on the news, and a little girl was showing the book that I sent her. So that was kind of fun. And then in Peanuts, Lucy is reading If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And she turns to Snoopy and says, "You should write a book like that." And he starts typing, "If you give a beagle a brownie." And the Kansas City Library had a softball team, and they did this poster, "If you make a moose an all-star." Somebody made these cookies, and these cookies I found on Etsy, but I don't think I would want to eat them. They're too pretty. And I've been to over 100 schools, and I'm always made to feel very welcome. I love it. And I love meeting all the kids and the teachers and the librarians. And this was a school outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, and they voted. And If You Take Mouse to the Movies won, and a Moose a Muffin got the least amount of votes. And I don't remember where this school was because I've been to so many, I haven't kept track. I know this was in Mississippi, and the teacher asked what I wanted for lunch. And I do like McDonald's. I like chicken McNuggets with barbecue sauce. And when we went to pick up my lunch, I saw this sign. Can you imagine seeing your name on a McDonald's sign? And the best part was I got free French fries. And this was a school somewhere in Southern California. And I love the artwork that all the kids do. This was a special event in San Diego. And I've always wanted to write a book about a service dog. And I met a service dog, and I ended up Raising a Hero. And I did it with a Kickstarter campaign. So I raised money to do it on my own. And the dog, the little puppy in the book, his name is Max. And this little puppy who is being raised to become a service dog, his name is Max. So I love this photograph. And the artist did some sketches, and they wear little yellow capes when they're puppies. And then this is the sketch. Sam likes to read at night. He reads out loud so I can listen. And that's the final illustration. So there's the sketch, and there's the final illustration. And I have met so many people since the book came out. I've met people who have dogs, and this little girl's dog, it's actually a hearing dog. And this little dog likes to read, I guess. This dog's name is Eugene. And when a litter is born, the whole litter has a name that begins with the same letter. And this dog says, "Reading gives us someplace to go when we have to stay where we are," which is perfect for this last year. I have been reading 4 hours every day. And this is Portia and India, and they came to visit me at one of the book signings. And sometimes they use the dogs at libraries. And all of the people in the blue shirts are puppy raisers. And puppy raisers take care of the dog for the first year or so, and then the dogs go away to a special training center. And what's amazing about these dogs, they're all golden retrievers or Labradors or a mix. They're so well trained. I don't think you could do this with just any 8 dogs. So they're very sweet. And I finally got my own cat, and well, his name was Gizmo. This is the day I met him, but I call him Henry. And he makes me laugh all the time. He rolls over so I can give him a belly rub. He likes to sit on my shelves, which are in back of me. And every time he sits like this, I just crack up. And I'll look down and he's just staring at me, and I'm sure he's asking for some more food, even though I just fed him 10 minutes ago. He likes to sit right in front of my computer screen. So remember, Eloise was one of my favorite books. I got to meet the illustrator. I was so excited. And then Stuart Little, illustrated by Garth Williams. My friends knew the artist when he was alive, and they had some of his artwork to sell. And I bought this picture of Stuart. So I have this hanging in my office. I collect all kinds of things. I have a room that's just filled with stuff that I find on eBay or flea markets or people give me. I actually like scary Halloween masks, but I also like cute little fuzzy bunnies. Anything with dogs. And the dog you see in the back to the right was the one that gave me the idea for Sherman Crunchley. Photographs, and I have them all over the house. And I love old cars, although this is the only one I have. And these are all my books. So I've written a total of 47 and illustrated 9 of them. And my motto is never give up, because if you give a mouse a cookie was rejected 9 times. And I'm going to read Raising a Hero. Hi, I'm Max. My mom says when I grow up, I'm going to be a service dog. Service dogs are really smart. They can open doors, turn on lights, and even take off someone's shoes. My mom says helping someone do those things is just like being a hero. Every service dog starts learning with a puppy raiser. When I met my puppy raiser, Sam, I knew right away we'd be best friends. I'm going to live with Sam and his family for a whole year. He's going to teach me the basics before I go to school to learn the really hard stuff. Every morning, Sam has cereal with bananas and milk, and I eat yummy, crunchy kibble. When we're finished, it's time to start training. Sometimes I just want to run around and play. When Sam and I go out, I get to wear my special yellow vest. It lets people know I'm working. I always feel important when I have it on. Once a week, we go to puppy kindergarten. I'm friends with all the puppies in my class. There's Ellie, Pork Chop, Nacho, Daisy, Mr. Bubbles, and Moose. Everything we learn to do in class is called a command. One of the commands I like best is visit. It means Sam is asking me to get close to him. After school, we go to the park to practice. Sometimes I just want to chase the squirrels. Once I saw a real service dog and he didn't even look at the squirrels. I can't wait to be just like him. We met a little girl named Lucy who uses a wheelchair. I got to practice my visit command. Lucy said one day, I'll help someone like her. Service dogs have to stay focused when they're working. So I have to practice being around people, cars, and all kinds of noises. I can go places other dogs aren't allowed. I can go on the bus. The bus driver even lets me ride for free. I can go to the library. Sam likes to look at books about dinosaurs. I like to take a nap. I can go to a restaurant. I'm supposed to stay underneath the table, which is really hard when the French fries smell so good. But my favorite place to go is the movies. Sam always gives me a little popcorn. When we get home, Sam takes off my vest and we get to play. Sometimes I get so dirty, I have to take a bath. Before we go to bed, Sam reads aloud and I listen. After Sam says the end, he brushes his teeth and then he brushes mine. When it's time for me to leave, Sam and I are going to miss each other very much. But we both like dreaming about how I'll be helping someone who needs a dog like me. And that's just like being a hero. So I'm going to look in chat and see if there are any questions. I don't see any questions, but
let me see, Laura. Let's we can invite folks who are here, if you have questions, to go ahead and put them in the chat. And then maybe Rivka and Christy from the library will help me sort through. There were a lot of people in the chat who wanted to tell you hello and how much they love your books. Let's see. I can find some other questions in here. It's also laundry day at Amanda's house, just so you know.
oh,
Right. How many pets do you have?
I just have Henry, but I've been looking for a dog, a rescue dog. And what I'd love to do is be able to, when this whole mess is over, is take him or her to visit kids in the hospital.
That is, let's see. All right. What would you tell little first graders about writing?
Writing?
Yeah, about being a writer, author.
I think the most important thing about being a writer is to be a good reader. I think the best authors are people who have read tons and tons of books. And also, I would say never give up. What if on the 8th time I tried to sell If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, I just said, I can't take this anymore, forget it. Most of my books have been rejected. The only books that haven't really been rejected were the If books, the when I did If What Mommies Do Best, What Daddies Do Best, I sold that 4 books. And If You Give a Man a Cookie wasn't turned out. I sold that right away. And it didn't do well, but that's okay.
There's a question in here too, to ask if you have thought about writing some science books for kids.
I'm not really that good at writing nonfiction. Service dogs, I had to do a lot of research, but the research was fun because I got to go to dog training classes and meet all the puppies. And so that's the kind of advice I liked.
And then someone would like to know when your birthday is.
July 14th. And that is France's Independence Day. So it's like their July 4th. And I've been lucky to be in Paris twice on my birthday. So that was my favorite kind of cookie, double stuffed Oreo. hands down. But I have to put them in the freezer for a few hours before I eat them. And I used to love Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies. When I was a Girl Scout, I sold the most cookies, but in those days we delivered them and I forgot who ordered the cookies.
There's also a question on here about, now I heard you talking about writing lots of books about dogs or cats, but somebody wanted to know if you had thought about writing a book about dogs and cats.
I haven't, but maybe since I'm looking for a dog, maybe when I get the dog, there might be a story that comes out of it. Hopefully it's that they become best friends.
Once you have them both in your house and they're interacting, you might be inspired.
I hope so. I hope it's a good ending.
Well, that's the bulk of the questions that I see. Rivka or Christy, do you see some other things in there? I know there's a few questions populating. Maybe we can probably have time for.
Here's one. What is it like working with the illustrator who makes the book to make the books come to life?
Different illustrators work differently. Sometimes they just do whatever they want to do. And sometimes I work with the illustrator. Most authors, like 98% of authors, don't get to choose their illustrator. So unless you illustrate the book, which is the most fun because then you can do whatever you want and you can put names in, although I put names in when I'm writing the book. But let's say there's a book in the book, I get to decide the title of the book and whatever the book is. But when the fourth or fifth book in the If series had been selling really well, I then have been able to choose all the illustrators I've worked with. So most of the books you see, except for the If books, I've chosen the illustrators. Lynn Munsinger, who did, What Mommies Do Best and Raising a Hero. We've done 12 books together. And I also, just a couple of things, charities that I'm involved with.
The dog's name was Hero.
I'm involved with First Book. They donate brand new books to kids who don't have any books. I mean, can you imagine not having a single book? And then I'm also involved with writing. So it's writing for people with disabilities. I sponsor a horse. I take care of the horse's food and stable and everything. And I just wrote a book about that and I just sent it to an editor. So I have, fingers crossed. And I'm also, David McPhail, who did When Sheep Sleep, he liked one of the books I wrote and he sent it to his agent and we'll see. And then I'm working on Goldilocks and the Five Bears. Who are the other two? I'll tell you. Grandma and Grandpa have moved in with their son because they were tired of living in Florida. So they moved in with him in the exciting New York City.
Laura, there are two questions on here that I think are really good ones for you to answer. One is, how long does it take you to write a book? And the other one is, what do you do when you have writer's block?
Okay. Well, this one took months because I had to do research. And this one took 2 hours only because the idea came to me, beginning, middle, and an end. But the next book and the next book in the series, I think by the time I wrote If You Give a Mouse a Brownie, I did 20 or 30 drafts. So I've never the only time I wrote a book that just came out the way it was this. There was very little editing, but hours, I'd say weeks and months. And even though there aren't a lot of words, they're not easy to write. They're hard, but I call it fun, hard work. And my favorite part is when I've got down the first draft and then I can go back in and work on it and make sure everything sounds just right. And I read it out loud a lot.
Okay, and writer's block.
Oh, writer's block. Well, I've had a very bad case recently. And usually what I try to do is not think about it. because if you just sit there and think, you're going to go crazy. So I will just maybe go to a museum, go for a walk, watch a movie or something, and just hope that an idea comes to me. Oh, I know people always like to ask what I do when I'm not writing. I play tennis and take lessons 3 times a week. I work out 6 days a week. I do boxing and weight training, and it's been on Zoom with my trainer. I love to read. I read a lot of biographies. I love to read biographies about artists and writers and all kinds of people. I've been watching a lot of, Netflix, Bridgerton and Queen's Gambit. I love Jeopardy. I've been a Jeopardy answer 3 times. I was doing crossword puzzles a lot. I mean, a lot. I was like addicted to them. If you have an idea.
Do the editors correct you all the time?
Yes, the editors are like your teachers. And I'd say 90% of the time I like what they suggest. And then there are times when I have to stick to my guns. One editor wanted me to put a shiny penny in one of my stories. And I just said, I don't like shiny penny. I'm not putting in my book. So
there's another question in there. If you were going to write about something other than animals, what would you choose to write about?
I actually was thinking of writing a book about the first African-American policewoman.
Great idea.
You should come to Sacramento and learn about the 2. We had 2 African-American women become police officers at the same time, and they have an incredible story. If you want to learn more about them, I'd be more than happy to tell you about them. They are amazing women, and their stories about how they got involved in police work in Sacramento are incredible.
Okay, I will keep that in mind.
Yes.
This is the Raising a Hero. This Christian one is casting a breeder dog that will give birth to service dogs.
Yes, and also they like your answer about the police officers.
Yeah, if she could let me know if that's for CCI, Canine Companions for Independence. $1 from every book goes to CCI. They're the biggest organization that trains. There's 6 huge facilities. It is. She's got a breeder dog for CCI. There are 6 big facilities in the United States. And the first one, the biggest one, is in Santa Rosa. And it's the Charles Schultz campus, Gene and Charles Schultz campus. And I've been there. I did my research in San Diego. Oh, that's so great. So Christian's going to have those little puppies for 8 weeks. And they have, when I was in Santa Rosa, some breeder had puppies, and they have people come in every day and play with the puppies to get them socialized.
So great. Well, what a treat this has been. We have loved having you. You are a wonderful storyteller. And I'm so grateful that you spent your morning with us and that so many people joined us today. That's just fantastic. So Rivka, do you want to say anything to help us close out? Laura, we'd be more than happy to host you when you're ready to come to Sacramento. I'd be happy to introduce you to 2 amazing African-American women who could help you write your next story. They're quite inspirational. And just thank you so much. What a special treat for all of us.
You're so welcome. And then I'd love to do some school visits.
Yes, we'd love to have you.
We'll work on, boy, imagine being in the same room with you again. It would be incredible. And we know kids would love it too. And we have great relationships with the schools, thanks to Amanda Folk, who was our librarian behind the scenes today, and Christy Ham. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They are amazing. And as I said, Amanda is our K-12 specialist, and Laura, you were incredible. And Angelique, Ashby, we cannot thank you enough, Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, for bringing this to us and bringing it to our community and celebrating. And Laura, I want to also mention that thanks to the Friends of the Library, we do a program called Book First, where we put books into the hands of first graders in high need schools throughout the county. This year, we gave out 14,000 books, or last year to first graders throughout Sacramento County.
That's amazing.
And it's all thanks to the Friends of the Library. And many of those books come from First Book.
Oh,
Because we try to get as many books this year because of COVID and not being able to do real school visits. Kids have gotten 2 books.
wow.
Suspended last year. So
Great. Yeah, that's Kyle Zimmer.
yes, I know Kyle.
Yeah, she's quite a little pistol.
Oh, she's incredible. I sat next to her at a conference once. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's
Because the world is only this big.
I usually start by bragging on Rivka too, and I guess I didn't do it when she's here, but Rivka actually just about this time last year, I went with her and we went back and she received a very prestigious award. She's actually the public librarian of the year from last year, and we're not surprised because she's amazing. We all already knew that, but it's been really fun to see her be acknowledged.
Actually, it was the Klein Prize for the whole library. And
yes,
we were the first library in the country to get that. So
fantastic. Rivka's amazing. We're very lucky. And by the way, I just have to tell you the name of the 2 police officers that I want to tell you about are perfect for children's book because their names are Flossie and Felicia. Those are the 2 officers from Sacramento, Flossie and Felicia. All right, more to come.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for spending your morning with us.
Thank you.
We love our library.
Everyone. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.